All right, so today we're going to do a review, and the way that this is going to work is I've got, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 questions in here. They're all multiple choice, covering chapters 1 through 7. I know I haven't lectured on 7 yet, but I think there's only 2 questions on it. If you want to keep a record, feel free to pull out paper and something to write with what your answers and how many you get right. What I'm going to do is show up the screen up, and then it'll have the answers, and then the next, or not the answers, it'll have the 4 choices, and then the next screen is going to indicate what the correct answer is. So we're going to go through this as a group. So we are, why is it slide? Okay, so the first question is, about 20 to 35% of healthy adults have which type of pathogen on their skin? So there's 4 different answers. This is just like the final is going to be. Does anybody know the answer? Okay. Okay, so it's the third answer, Staphylococcus aureus. When should a food handler remove his or her apron? You know the answer? You? The first one, when leaving the prep areas. Yes, that's correct. You don't want to take your apron, go out into the hallway, into the restroom, take out garbage, anything like that, because then you're going to contaminate it. What must be included on the label of TCS food that was prepped in-house? The second one? Okay. This is a strangely worded, at least some of the answers. Okay. The date that the food should be thrown out. That's correct. I'm sorry, TCS proof. Okay, I was reading more into it than is actually there. So that's good. If you prep TCS food in-house, then you have to have the discard date on it. Okay, when should single-use gloves be worn? Anybody think it's the first one? Anybody think the second one? One thinks it's the second one. What about the third one? The fourth one? Is there anyone that you can eliminate? Okay, you can eliminate the third one, carrying trash out of the food prep area. It doesn't make any sense that you'd have to wear gloves to do that. Any other ones? Okay, it's going to be when you're working with ready-to-eat food. That's because it's not going to be cooked or processed any further. It's ready to eat. So you don't want to contact that with your bare hands. Okay, when can a hot food be reheated and restored to a safe condition? there a best answer out there? So for the first one, if it's not been in the temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours, if it's been in the temperature danger zone for 3.5 hours, does it make sense that you can reheat it and then continue serving it? And especially when there's one at the bottom that says, if it has not been in the temperature danger zone for more than 2 hours. What do we know about the time in the temperature danger zone? Like how much time does food have to spend in the temperature danger zone before we get rid of it? One, 2, 3, 4, 24 hours. 4 hours. Okay, so that's the magic number. But if it's been in the temperature danger zone for 4 hours, then it's time to throw it out. You don't have time to go and try to reheat it. So the correct answer is going to be if it has not been in the temperature danger zone for more than 2 hours. Within what time frame should TCS food be cooled from 135 degrees to 41 degrees? And this was from chapter 6. Did anybody watch the video from the lecture on Wednesday? And do you remember how many hours you have to get it cooled down? Anybody? 6. Okay, if I had hand signal, say 6. Okay. And that's correct. So when you're cooling down food, it has to go from 135 to 70 degrees within 2 hours, because that's the highest temperature, or the highest bacterial growth is going to happen between 70 and 125. So that's the area that you're going through. So you only have 2 hours to get it down to 70 degrees, and then you have the remaining 4 hours to get it down to 41. Okay, a food handler pulled a hotel pan of tuna salad from the cooler and used it to prepare 6 tuna salad sandwiches. What is the problem with this situation? If you're not familiar with a hotel pan, it's about 16 inches by 8 inches, and it can be at least 2 or 3 inches deep. So with that in mind, is that poor personal hygiene? Does that have anything to do with hygiene? Okay. Does it have anything to do with cleaning and sanitizing? Okay. So time temperature abuse or cross-contamination? Okay, it's time temperature abuse because that whole big pan is way more than you need to make 6 sandwiches. So what you should do is take a smaller container into the cooler, put the tuna salad into the smaller container, and then go out and make the sandwiches with that. Okay. All of the following mistakes are related to time temperature abuse, cross-contamination, poor personal hygiene, or poor cleaning and sanitizing, except are you answering or are you? Pardon me? Okay. The first one? Yeah, because failing to cook food correctly is time temperature abuse. Holding food at incorrect temperatures is also time temperature abuse. Using contaminated equipment is cross-contamination. So purchasing food from unsafe sources. All right, which of these tools is best suited to measure the temperature of a griddle? There's a photograph of what we're calling a griddle. So why would you take the temperature of the griddle? Make sure you aren't burning the food. You might want to make sure that it's hot enough. You don't want to put food onto a cold griddle. So it could be for either purpose. So what kind of a probe or device would you use? What does an air probe take temperature of? Did you say air? Because that's the right answer. It takes the temperature of the air. What is a time temperature indicator for? Okay, so it's put on by the person selling you the food so that you can see the temperature, the highest temperature it reached and how long it would have stayed at that temperature. Your bimetallic stem thermometer, what do you do with those? Would you take the temperature of a surface with that? That's the one that we've looked at. It has the little head on it and the numbers and the stem. And you have to insert that probe into the whatever you're taking the temperature of. So we're looking for the surface temperature, which is what an infrared thermometer does. Okay, what should food handlers do to prevent food allergens from being transferred to food? The fourth one? Anybody else think it's the fourth one? Okay, it's good. Cleaning and sanitize utensils before use. And we're avoiding cross contact because that's what we call when you would transfer an allergen from one surface to another. What is the most important way to prevent a foodborne illness from viruses? What are we doing? What are we supposed to be doing more now than we had been before COVID came along, which is a virus? Pardon? You have to wash your hands. Okay. Washing your hands, good personal hygiene is the best way to prevent the transfer of viruses. For foodborne illness. Okay. I don't think we covered this, but you might be able to figure it out. Spoons or scoops used to serve foods such as ice cream or mashed potatoes can be stored under running water that is at least what temperature? So if you're worried about controlling the growth of bacteria, what temperature do you need it to be? 135, the top of the temperature danger zone. A restaurant manager has reason to believe that a recent shipment of green onions may be linked to a foodborne illness outbreak. What should be done with the remaining unused product from the shipment? Segregate it? Yes, the second one. And also label it do not use, do not discard. Food handler is reheating commercially processed cheese sticks, which will then be hot held on a buffet. What temperature must these cheese sticks be reheated to? So if you have like, you bought frozen breaded cheese sticks and you're going to cook them and stick them out on a buffet. 135, because it's a commercially processed food. Okay, what temperature must TCS food be reheated to if it will be hot held? So if we're going to put it into a chafing dish, put it out on a buffet for people to eat, how hot do we have to get it before we put it onto the buffet? So it was like gumbo or, yeah. This is something that we've cooked it, we've cooled it down, and then we're using it like the next day. There's 4 that you guess from. Anybody want to guess? 155? It's one guess. Higher or lower? 145. Okay. It's going to be 165. This is one of those that when you're going to be putting it out onto a buffet, anything that you reheat is going to have to be reheated up to 165 within 2 hours. So if you've got a bunch of gumbo, you might put it among several pots in order to get it up, cooked or reheated to 165 faster. Okay, which of these statements about rejecting shipments is not accurate? Which one? The last one? Anybody else think it's the last one? Okay, I have 4 people I think it's the last one. 1, I heard the first one. Anybody for 2 or 3? So only the manager is allowed to reject a delivery that does not meet the food service operation standards. Anybody work in a restaurant? Does the manager have to sign that off? Not always. Only the manager, yeah, that is not correct. Whoever is in charge of your purchasing or receiving, or whoever you trust on your staff to receive things, they can reject a delivery. For the last one, in the event that you have cans that are received are contaminated on the surface, you can recondition those by washing them, as long as you're not going to lose the labels whenever you do something like that. Okay, which of these groups is considered a part of the supply chain? So has anybody heard of a supply chain before? Like if we were a car factory, the supply chain would be all of the people that touch all of the nuts and bolts and pieces and materials used in our car. So in a restaurant, it's the supply chain for our food. So who is part of getting the food to us? I can see where you can choose from 2 of these, but there's only one best answer. Anybody want to guess what one of them is? The first one, Packers. Okay, that happens to be the correct answer. I could see where you could make an argument for regulators because they inspect products, but they don't inspect every single piece of thing or piece of anything. So they do more of a spot check type of inspection. But you're going to have packers most of the time during as part of the supply chain. What is the best method of checking the temperature of a delivery of fresh fish? Which one isn't it? It's not 4. It's not the last one. Okay, good. The first one. Okay, you want to find out what the internal temperature of that fish is, because it might have been sitting out at room temperature for a day, and then they throw it onto ice, and it's like the outside feels nice and cold, but the inside might be 60 or 70 degrees. Okay, we prepared coleslaw in-house on July 5th. The discard date is, I hear the 11th, okay? I hear the 12th. It's going to be the 11th. I don't know why this thing is here. But you want to start with the day that you actually made it and count up to 7. So it's going to be on July 11th. Manager arrived one morning to find that an overnight key drop delivery of beef had been left outside the cooler. What should the manager do? First one. Yeah, you're not going to use food that's been sitting out for more than 4 hours. Okay. Which of the following preparations does not require a variance from the health department? And usually when we need a variance, it's because we're handling food in the temperature danger zone using a method that is safer than general preparation, but you have to create a plan showing exactly how you're going to do it and how you're going to document it. So you're really, really concerned about food being in the temperature danger zone. So one of these is considered safe to do in your restaurant. Yeah. The second one, the whole steamed lobster. Okay. So why would we have an issue with lobster? If you had a tank that you were pulling it out of, like a display tank, that you're taking the lobster out of it, that you would need a variance from the health department. But this doesn't say anything about that being the case. And most restaurants don't even have that kind of a thing. They keep their lobster in a cooler just like you would keep crawfish in a cooler. What is the minimum cooking temperature for dishes that include previously cooked TCS ingredients? So if we were taking some type of leftovers and making casserole or maybe some kind of soup out of it. Is it the second one? No, it's going to be the first one. Anything that, has been previously cooked, as you're using that as an ingredient, you're going to have to bring that up to 165 degrees. And part of the reasons you want to do that is that you've already cooked this and cooled it down one time, and now you're going to be cooking it again. So you want to make sure that there's no chance at all that it's going to have bacteria on it. Okay, ratites, including ostrich and emu, must be cooked to an internal temperature of 155 degrees Fahrenheit for how long? 4 minutes? No.
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Oh, actually, yeah, that's wrong too. It's it's the 17 seconds. They're probably not going to ask you a question like this. For over 20 years that I've done this course, it's the 155 was 15 seconds, and for some reason the last time they updated it, they changed it to 17 seconds. But I don't think they're going to be bad enough to do that. Where you would want to go for 4 minutes, that would be like a large roast, that you want to be able to hold that at 145 for 4 minutes. Okay, shell eggs going to be served immediately, must be cooked to an internal temperature of here. 135? No, it's not 135. So if it's not 135, and we know that we're not going to hold these after we cook them, that we're going to serve them immediately, we can pretty much eliminate the idea of it being 165. So 145, because they're being served immediately, 145 is acceptable. If they were going to be held for service, then you would have to cook them to 155. Stuffed pork chop has to be cooked to an internal temperature of, pardon? Stuffed pork chop. Pardon me? Is it the second one? No. 165. Anything that is stuffed, or any meat that is, any type of a stuffing made with a TCS food, or any fish, meat, or poultry that is stuffed, or pasta that is stuffed. 165. Roast beef that has been cooked and cooled properly must be reheated to what temperature when being served immediately? None of the above. Why? Somebody said it. No, actually, there is no requirement for a reheating temperature if you're going to serve it immediately. Because you could eat that real cooked and cooled roast beef, you could eat it cold. You could slightly warm it up. You could make it nice and hot. But there is no requirement for that. And that is a question that you could see. But if you're going to hold it, if you're going to put it on a buffet, then you're going to have to heat it up all the way to 165. Okay, we cooked fried chicken in our kitchen for a picnic in the quad today. This is before COVID. Once we remove it from a hot box where it has been held at 135 degrees, how long may we hold it without temperature control before we must discard it? And this is a chapter 7 question, because I know we haven't gone over this yet. And the correct answer is 4 hours. We can hold hot food outside at an uncontrolled temperature for up to 4 hours, because it's going from that 135 down to 70 degrees where bacteria grows at the highest rate. I don't think the question is in here about what about cold food. If we took cold potato salad and had a picnic and had it outside on a day like today, how long could we hold it out there? And the answer to that is actually 6 hours, because it's in the lower part of the temperature danger zone. You have more time. However, you have to keep track of it. And if it does go above 70 degrees, then you have to get rid of it. And we'll go over that in chapter 7. Okay. Which is not an approved method for thawing frozen chicken wings? Why do you say that? I'm just curious. It sounds good. Okay. Okay, running water lower than 135 degrees, that's going to be a problem, because we don't want the temperature of that food to be in the danger zone. So the running water that you use whenever you are thawing an ingredient has to be 70 degrees or cooler. When calibrating your thermometer in boiling water, temperature should read 212, that's the temperature of boiling water. Okay, and then the next question is going to be, what is the temperature if you're putting it in ice water? I'm not going to show it to you because it gives you the answer on it. But what's the freezing point of water? 32. Okay. So that's the last question. Trying to see exactly how many slides we have on here. Probably about 30 questions, it looks like. So in order to score 75% on the exam, 75% of 30 would be like 23. So you could maybe miss up to 7 questions on it. So if you were able to answer 23 correct on this, you would be able to pass the exam. So that should give you some idea of where you are right now and how much more you need to study in order to be able to pass the exam. These kind of things that I'm doing, I'm writing more like what the exam is going to be like than the questions in the book are, because while there will be some easy questions on the exam, like it really is a good test of whether or not you know the material. So you're gonna have to be able to make the logical conclusions from the information that they give you. So we're going to be doing each chapter quiz that's on Moodle now. It has review questions from prior chapters. We really want to focus on that. And then we're going to be doing as many reviews as we can so that you're prepared for the exam at the end of the month. Any questions? All righty. Have a good weekend. Wear your mask.